Mario Tennis Aces has been on Switch since 2018, and joined a collection of Switch Mario sports games that have mostly been collectively described as mid from the community as of late. But is Mario Tennis Aces as mediocre as described, or does it present some real value to people who still wish to play and develop its metagame and online scene? Is the game still a service ace, or is there no love to be found? So, after the Mario Tennis games on 3DS and the absolutely dog-water excuse of a game called Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on Wii U, Nintendo and developer Camelot were in need of a series rejuvenation of sorts. While they wouldn't attempt to create another tennis RPG like before on handhelds, for their Switch tennis outing, they tried to strike a balance between offering enough of a single-player campaign while still providing a more classic console-styled Mario Tennis, all underpinned with a few new gameplay mechanics to keep things interesting. Clearly looking a little similar to Mario Tennis Ultra Smash in terms of graphics, but improved in many ways, Ace is intended to set the series forward again, with a better system for active competition online, and with a consistent flow of free updates to keep players coming back. The updates were mostly new character drops with some pretty cool additions like Fire, Piranha Plant, and Pauline, while other characters like Boom Boom and Dry Bowser felt a bit underwhelming. Overall though, the full roster is decent, featuring core cast favorites, many of whom have cool tennis-themed outfits, as well as more obscure character entries to keep things fresh. Everyone can agree that Chain Chomp needs to be playable more in sports games. Just, come on, it's Chain Chomp. I love this guy, even though he kind of sucks in the game. Each character has their own big move that they can unleash when their zone bar is full, and that's connected to the main gameplay mechanics that change things up for Aces. The use of the zone energy. Yeah. Pressing R over star shots allows users to freeze time and make first-person aimed zone shots in a limited amount of time, whereas using it outside of a star hit allows the player to slow down time using zone speed to catch up to a rally, or to better time a counter. When attempting to return a powerful zone shot, the timing must be perfect, or else the opponent's racket takes damage. If your racket gets destroyed, you're knocked out and you lose the match. I swear this is probably the only tennis game I've encountered where you have multiple rackets and they have health bars. It's certainly interesting. I do like it, it's just weird. This mechanic is really drilled into the player via the story mode, which we'll get to. The management of the zone meter basically becomes a huge mechanic for gameplay in Aces, and without it you won't be able to handle an active opponent. It's mechanically a step above from Power Tennis or any previous Mario Tennis, but it's also nothing so spectacular that it keeps me coming back for more. Sometimes it can even take away from what would otherwise be a skillful rally. The last mechanic worth noting are these trick shots, which, by the way, are mapped to 2 hits of the X button, not just the use of the right stick. So, if you're used to using the X button for lob shots, this can be a bit frustrating. Luckily enough, there are ways to turn this off so that only the right analog stick is usable to perform these trick shots, but still, it's just a weird default setting to be put on. Using trick shots will actually become very important, but don't get used to the idea of using them to block zone shots or special shots, as the timing for that is crazy and you'll probably end up breaking your racket in the process. All of these mechanics are utilized in the story mode, which is a far cry from the story modes of the previous Mario handheld tennis RPGs, but it is a step up from the non-existent story mode in Mario Tennis games on previous home consoles, and that includes the also non-existent story mode in Mario Tennis Open on 3DS as well. Sure, it's 2 steps back from that old school RPG greatness, but it's 1 step forward in terms of the context of the more recent entries into the franchise. You win some, you lose some. The story goes like this. There's an evil tennis racket spirit named Lucien that's been unleashed and is taking over Mario's friends and family while wreaking havoc on the land. Thus, it's up to the iconic portly plumber turned tennis pro to explore this world map and challenge level after level until finally defeating the evil tennis spirit and, of course, an incarnation of Bowser, you know. New Bowser skin dropped. Admittedly, the story mode is actually fun and a good way to get used to the mechanics of the game. It has some nice special effects and character model texturing, and the bosses are a creative mix of new and old. It doesn't exactly hold its luster after it's all done, but the final boss gauntlet challenge is just so impossible feeling that it will probably keep the dedicated entertained enough. Just don't go into this expecting the quality story from a Mario RPG or something. It's tennis gimmicks and puns with some nice environments to boot. So we're done the story mode, and there's not much else to collect beyond that. Unless somehow, of course, you aren't excited by the constant flow of new color hairbands for Spike to earn in the online tournament mode. Bowser at least gets a Guy Fieri Black Flames shirt, so that's alright, I guess. The other updates beyond the character drops consisted of new modes, but these modes aren't exactly the most exciting things to replay. Especially if you compare this to the modes from Mario Power Tennis on GameCube, Aces is pretty barren after one polishes off that story mode. You basically just have variations of Ring Challenge, which was one mode back on N64 and GameCube, but here is like 75% of all of the single player content. There's also the motion control specific modes, but these also don't have much variety in terms of design or gameplay goals. It's basically what was already there, except you have Joy-Con motion controls this time. And much like Switch Sports, the tennis with the one-to-one gyro of the Joy-Cons, while fun, is wickedly hard to control. You'll find your strokes sending balls out of bounds a lot if you're not very careful with how you play. While the variations of Ring Challenge are hard, like really surprisingly hard, it doesn't invite itself for more study. The rewards are just not enough to keep me engaged to the point of 100% completion. And that's basically the state of the game since its 3.1.0 update back in 2019. Since then, the game has had a relatively underpopulated online space. Though you will still find games of all available varieties, including the tournament mode, but you might just find yourself waiting for a long time. And you might yet get matched with a laggy opponent, meaning that you might experience some nonsense in that game, and if you're really focused on each match being a means of raising your rank, matches like these can be super bothersome. I will admit, playing with people is still fun, even online where there's certainly some questionable things happening. Locally, it's obviously a fun time, though clearing through the game with a co-op friend could be even better if it had more gameplay challenges and modes like in Power Tennis. For what's here, it's good, but it's just nothing super exceptional. Back to online for a second because the current meta is pretty boring. Mostly because there just wasn't a dedicated community to spawn out of Aces. Without more community events or other updates, the online scene just kinda came and went. While there are character tier lists and some research done to determine competitive strategy, there's just not enough attention to garner a larger following. There was a bit of character supremacy back in the day with Bowser Jr. being infamously broken, but now most tier lists have Bowser Jr. near the very bottom of things, so yeah, it's nothing crazy. Most 3.1.0 lists have characters like Koopa and Peach at the top, whereas many defensive and slower characters find themselves near the bottom. So there have been developments, but it's nothing that shook up the metagame to the point of being dynamic, and it's certainly not entertaining enough to be interested in without also playing. So that's kind of where we're at with Aces. I'm not gonna lie and say Aces is bad or even middle of the road. I think it's great, but it's certainly lacking, especially if you plan on picking it up at full retail price. If you're seeing it on sale and it looks like it might interest you, I think it'll be worth your time. The adventure is certainly worth it, but if you're looking for the depth of modes that you might find in Power Tennis, don't get your hopes up. You got the variations of ring challenges and the co-op challenges, and that's it. But for some tennis fans, that's more than enough. But if you are hoping for a more active online community or a greater ladder or competitive depth, you might not be over the moon with Aces.
14-15.
So I think while at a discount Aces is worth playing still even today, you might find it doesn't provide that full serving of content you might be looking for. Still great, but not quite acing the test.
Woo!